Welcome to Between the Reads, where we shine a spotlight on some of the most talented Black authors in the industry to discuss their works of fiction and the inspirations behind them. Each episode, we'll dive into the rich and diverse world of literature, exploring everything from historical fiction to romance and speculative fiction to YA and beyond. Tune in as we celebrate the voices of Black authors and the power of storytelling. Are you ready, Boos and Bros? Then sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Welcome to Between the Reads. This is our special end of the month episode called Rants and Rambles, and I am here with my girl, Chelsea Lockhart, better known as CM Lockhart, better known as Chelsea. And if you have ever listened to any of my episodes of my show, you know who she is. She is the owner and founder of Written in Melanin Library. She is the author of We Are the Origin. She is the author, the creator of the Written in Melanin podcast. She is the all-around badass of the internet.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Chelsea. Welcome. How are you?
Applause.
Welcome, ma'am. How are you?
I am amazing. How are you?
I'm fine. I miss you. I miss our Written in Melanin chats that we used to do every month. So this is kind of like bringing it back a little bit in a little small way.
Absolutely. And I miss it too, man. I was like, I did get a nap today, which is also like great, but also I miss talking to you on a regular basis. Like I knew like, okay, well today I'm going to talk to Audra, so it's going to be fine. It's fine. I ain't got to cuss somebody out because I'm going to talk to Audra. It's going to be great.
Yes.
So
Rants and Rambles, y'all. For that don't know, this is the format of the show. We just gonna rant and ramble about whatever the hell comes up organically in the conversation. Chelsea also has some Twitter drama that she's gonna be talking about.
yeah,
I got one thing that I want to talk about. So Chelsea, I'm going to start because once you get to rambling and ranting, I'm just going to sit back and listen.
not her saying, I know you're going to rant, so I'm going to go first because you're not going to stop. Okay.
You're not that. Yeah. You see what it is. You know what it is. Don't
it's
act
fine.
like you know it.
I am not ashamed to know that I have opinions. Okay.
Listen, we got them, but you know, I'm going to put mine in there first because mine tend to be smaller, like, this is it. And then yours are like, this is it. But then you know what else? And then you know what else?
You know what?
And then you know what else?
I just tell you facts. That's it. I don't want to be judged for that. That's all. You know, it's not hard to be great, you guys. It's not. The bar is very low. Super low.
Down here.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you could trip over it if you weren't looking for it.
The tripwire. Not tripwire standards.
I mean, honestly, you could stand to lift it just to get under it, to be real.
See, y'all? This is what I mean. Rants and Rambles.
But I'm not going to start. Go ahead.
Okay, so my basic rant, you know, I wake up in the morning and before I get out to bed, I look at my Google cards because, you know, Google gives you all the news and stuff. And the more you click on, the more news they generate for you. So, of course, you know, mine is full of articles about books.
Yeah.
Here is my pet peeve.
Ooh.
Don't say shit like the 10 best historical fiction books of all time or the best science fiction books of all time. Okay, because these lists are all subjective. Okay, and while I understand that, and even in the articles they say sometimes that this list is subjective, put my favorite historical fiction books or my 10 best science fiction novels, because most of the time these lists do not include Black people, or they include like one or two Black authors
They
And I
include like the
feel
high
like,
profile authors.
yeah, they always put the high profile authors. And honestly, sometimes I don't even feel like they read the book. I feel like they just go get the summary and kind of like put it in their own words and then say that they read it
Absolutely.
when they really haven't. Or they haven't really done the work. They just picked something easy like a high profile author, like you said. And then they put that in there, but they don't really do the work because there's lots of other books out there. And it's always, I can always tell by the title what books are probably going to show up if they put a Black author in. So why say these are the classic books you must read? No, these are your classic books that you are recommending. But let's change those titles because
they're clickbait. They're doing exactly what they're meant to do. You're talking about it on your platform. You're drawing attention to it, but there are also other people that I think there's a certain level of, people don't want to think for themselves. And so you have to say things assertively like, oh, I don't read classics, but you have to read these classics. And they list off a bunch of stuff that you haven't read. And you're like, oh, surely those have to be classics because it came out, 1900 something or like 1920. Like it's a classic. Like that doesn't make it a classic. That makes it old, bruh. Like
right.
Just like every old thing in your house is not an antique. Okay. There's a difference. One is quality, one is not. Okay. One of them deserves to be appreciated. One of them deserves to be thrown out. Okay. They are not the same. They are not the same.
They are not the same at all. I just need them to be a little bit more subjective. You can still make your titles clickable and interesting, but you could say my 10 best historical fiction novels of all time, or, these are the science fiction books that I just couldn't put down. Something because, I'm getting tired of seeing all these lists.
Yeah, and a lot of these articles are written by people who don't read. They just work at a company that pushes out book content. And so they don't actually have an opinion and they're not actually researching these books or reading them or anything like that. That's why most booktubers and book talkers and book reviewers in general who read diversely, and I want to caveat this whole conversation by saying that I only follow people who read diversely. So if you're listening to this and you only follow people who read white books, you should really do the work of diversifying your feed to find people who diversify their bookshelf, because this idea in 2023 that it's so hard to find books by Black authors, clearly you found your way to this podcast, so that's not true. That is not true. But on top of that, you can literally just do what everybody else in the world does and just put like Black in the search bar and find something. But that's another rant. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. All I'm going to say is that, these lists are created by people who don't read diversely, who the only Black fantasy author they have heard of is like post 2020 is N.K. Jemisin. And it's just like N.K. Jemisin is great, but to say that that is the only Black author who is writing worthwhile fantasy is a glaring mistake, because no, definitely not. Hi Jemisin. N.K. Jemisin writes really like deep world building stories that you have to follow, and she has her very own unique style, which is great. Every author has to have that if they're going to be successful. Right. But to say that it's the only fantasy worth reading, bruh, have you read it? Have you read it though? Because there are definitely, just like every other book, there's some people who don't vibe with it, and that's fine. But it's just, I get on my soapbox when people are like, this is the bar for good fantasy. And I'm like, is it though? Do you know what good fantasy is? Do you know what you're looking for? Because a lot of people have arbitrary standards about what's good and they can't articulate it. And that's what gets on my nerves.
And I feel like you said, when they make these lists, I think they just go do a quick Google search and say, best fantasy authors. And then, how Google will put up the list of fantasy books. And it's like, and then they just take that and make their own article about it. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
And do some work.
Because even taking, the fact that Black authors and authors of color are 9 times out of 10 not included, they also don't include authors who are indie or self-published. They don't include the most popular books, because I'm thinking specifically of, there is a book by Kimberly Lemming. Like, she was one of the most top rated books on Amazon for several months in the romance fantasy genre. But it's just like, if you're not including her book, then you're not really actually doing any research. You're just skimming. You're just pretending. And it's just like, that's cool, but say that though. Say that these are, 10 arbitrarily picked, white authors published traditionally that I think you should read, possibly, because I did.
Let's put that as a title.
Yeah, that's the whole title right there.
10 arbitrary white authors I think you should read.
10 arbitrary traditionally published white authors I think you should read. I want to know what your arbitrary books are. I would click on that. I would. I just want to know.
Right.
I'm curious.
Right. I'm not going to read them.
Bring up? I'm not.
I'm not going to buy them.
But you know what? I'm going to be completely real with y'all. I wasn't going to read it anyway because it's by a white author. I'm past that point in my life. I have been. Can I derail it just a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to read white authors because I read white authors, especially for my fiction. Now, I will read them for nonfiction for certain things, but for my fiction, I was all white up until the pandemic because why? I went to my library and I read what they put out on the shelves, which is what? White authors, except for February. So, don't
other even than get me started on February.
Other than the canon of Toni Morrison, Richard Wright, people like that, which I read. I didn't start finding them in detail until, I started doing this podcast. And I mean, here comes February in a few days and everybody's going to be, black authors. But y'all, it's 365 days a year. Can we just read the black books? I'm going to tell you this right now.
If you follow me during February, I don't want it. Don't follow me during February.
Nope.
Follow me in March. Follow me when it's cool again. Because if you follow me in February, I'm going to block you, bruh. For real. That's the mood that I am in because I'm y'all so performative. I'm not going to help you.
Yeah,
because, wow, she's got a lot of ranting in her today, doesn't she? Good Lord.
I mean, because look, we are black and bookish. Y'all see the shirt.
Oh, that's
365 days a year.
Look, I love how Audra come through with the clothing line and the merch. And I'm over here in a tank top because I'm like, baby doll, I have not bought clothes since before the pandemic because I go nowhere.
You have the cool, beautiful new studio thing going on. So, I mean, it balances out.
Yeah.
Because my studio is trash. So I can make up for it with the shirts.
That is not true, man. I mean, at least you have a space because I have definitely talked to people and they didn't even have a space. They had no headphones.
Can we call this a space, though? Can I call this space? Do you see where my arms are right now?
I mean, it's better than being in your living room.
Yeah, well.
See?
Maybe. Maybe not.
We're not going down this rabbit hole. We're not.
We're not. Okay, so you said you had something to say about, you was getting ready to say something. Did you forget already?
Probably because I'm perpetually upset about the state of publishing and everything else. But it's just like the fact that there are so many people who want to be ooh, I want to diversify my bookshelf. And the thing is, as a black author, it's very interesting being on both sides of the fence, right? Because I'm an author, right? And so I write books. And so I'm used to dealing with people and trying to get them to read my very black book. And I'm going to say this because there was this thing going around, and Audra, you probably saw it in the chat. Because if y'all don't know, I have an after chat from the Melanin chat, which is still going if you want to join it. It's just $5 to sign up. But you probably saw it. And there's this author who was someone said that I write black books, and she was offended by that. And I'm telling you right now, I write black books. I do. I'm black. My characters are black. It's for black people. It's black, black. If you white, that's cool. You can like it too. I'm not gonna
She's a black author being offended by the fact that somebody says she writes black books.
Yeah, because she doesn't want to. I think it's under the assumption that she does not want to alienate her black authors, because she did it very nice and very soft banana, mushy banana right? But she was also very I write books for everyone. Let me tell you right now, C.M. Lockhart does not write for everyone. She writes for black women. Okay, she writes for black people. Okay, if you do not apply, you can read the book. I implore you to read the book anyway to see why it's for black people and learn something. Okay, buy the book. Woo, buy the book. But anyway,
buy the book, y'all.
The thing is, I feel like there's this idea that if you pick a niche, then you're isolating everyone who isn't in that niche. And it's just no, I am catering to this niche, but it's just if you like basketball, right? But you also like golf. Those demographics generally don't cross over, but there are going to be some golfers who also like basketball and some basketball people who also like golfing. And it's just like, it's cool. If you're making basketball content, people who like golf might find your content and be like, ooh, I really like this and vibe with it. Cool. But that doesn't mean I'm making golf content for golfers. I'm making basketball content for people who play basketball. But when you put it in reading terms and you're like, I write books for Black people, people are all of a sudden like, well, if it's for Black people, can I read it? Bitch, you got eyes. You can read. Like, what? What is that? What even kind of question is that? Yes, read the book. I'm not creating
just that
it.
It's not catered to you. Why can't they understand it? You can read it. I read shit by white people all the time. That shit wasn't for me, but I read it.
Like, did you lose the ability to read? I'm
you
not
think like
writing
some African warrior god is gonna jump out the book and like gouge your eyes out for being a white person when you read the book? I don't understand.
That would be amazing, but that's not how this works. We don't gatekeep like that. We really don't. And I think it's the fact that so many white authors in general and white readers like to gatekeep their stuff while also like force feeding it to people. And so they don't understand the fact that it's just like, yeah, it's not for you, but you're still welcome to come. Like, we're not telling you not to come into the party. We're telling you that it's an all Black party and you wearing orange. You can still come in and eat the cake, but like,
but you might get some stares.
They might look at you a little funny.
You wrecking the vibe, but it's okay.
But you're not unwelcome. You can come in and have a good time just like everybody else.
I mean, people gonna be like, "Why the hell you wearing orange to a Black party?" But
and then that's when you say, "I didn't know it was a Black party," and you move on.
Right? Exactly. I mean, come on, for real,
But yeah,
for real.
So I'll have to say that me, myself, and I, they, whatever. Chelsea C.M. Lockhart, right? I write books for Black people, for Black readers. And the reason I say that is because I want to center those stories, that voice. Like, my character is Black. I am a Black woman. I have only lived as a Black woman. I do not know how to cater to white women in the sense of writing a white character that acts white. So not her got the applause. She finna hype me up and she finna mess with my ego, y'all, for real.
I'm just saying.
But that being said, it's just like, I'm not going to get offended if someone says, oh, you write Black books? You damn right I do. Yeah. What else am I going to do? I'm not Asian. I don't write Asian books. Like, I'm not Hispanic. I can't write Hispanic books. I can write Hispanic characters. I can write white characters. But to be like, oh, yes, I can write the authentic point of view of a Hispanic woman living in Brazil. No, I can't. I don't know nothing about that. No matter how much research I do, I could fly to Brazil right now and live there for 5 years, and I still would not know what it was like to be a Hispanic woman living there.
Right.
So
you'd have more of an inside, knowledge of what it's like to live there. Period. But not as I come back
speaking Portuguese, but
you could.
That's it.
So that's it, homie. That's all there is to it. That's all there is to it.
So,
can we talk about that author who faked her own death?
Yo.
Let's start. I'm going to let you summarize it. So summarize what this author did.
I mean, you summarized it. Like, homegirl wrote a couple of books. They weren't selling. They weren't popping off. She sold like 12 copies. And so she was like, yeah, I don't know if she has a daughter or if she created a profile for her daughter. If she did, gotta respect the long game in this, right? But anyway, she had her daughter post that she died. She was dead, and they collected money for her funeral, and people were grieving, and they were like, the daughter was like, y'all bullied my mom into suicide. So we don't even want to sell her books or interact with y'all anymore, but she was writing this book for my wedding, and that was her wedding gift to me. So we're going to publish it, but then we're done. Like, don't expect anything else from us. And so they published it, and like some of the other authors pushed it, but it still didn't like pop off. And then the woman created another profile and had joined like her groups and stuff as like a different person. And she finally, I don't know, she just came back on to Facebook on her original account one day. She was like, yeah, so I want my life back. Y'all, I'm not dead. Like, I just faked my death. And people were like, what? And it was just like, what? It was all over Twitter. And I love Black people because Black people are like, that's illegal, right? Like, you can't do that. That's like,
yeah,
massively
because she
illegal.
had collected all this money on GoFundMe.
Yeah. And people are like, run me my check. Send me my money back for this imaginary funeral or whatever.
Right.
And she was like, well, we never did that. And then she tried to like blame her family and be like, well, I did check into a hospital. And people were like, well, why would your family tell everyone that you were dead? How is that the right answer? Like, what? And she tried to blame it off on her family. And people were like, no, you're responsible for this because you could have easily just come on the next day and be like, y'all, I'm not dead. My family posted that. I don't know why they did that. Please forgive me. Like, do not believe this, right? You at no point I think she was quote unquote deceased for like 2 years or something like that. And she was like, yeah, so I'm tired of people not caring. You obviously this was just about your fans because clearly your family knows that you're not dead. So clearly your family knows you were unwell mentally. Like, why do you have a
But
Facebook
I'm saying
account?
you like collected all this money and then your daughter, people are like, you're telling people to contact your daughter to get their money back. And then they're, the daughter's nowhere to be found. And she's like snarky, like, well, maybe I should just actually kill myself since you all want your money back.
I mean,
what are we doing here?
If I donated $200 and I've already mourned you being actually gone now really isn't going to make that big of a difference. That might be cold-hearted, but like, I mourned you. You have been gone. Like, you are already dead to me. I can't be like, you should kill yourself because you're already dead to me. I have to resuscitate you in my mind before I can be upset that you're going to be gone. Not trying to be insensitive, but like
mental CPR, bring you back to life.
Yeah. It's like,
what was the motivation? Did she think she was going to get some more book sales by saying she was dead? I think so.
Because, like, as artists, your worth and your product generally gains a lot more once you're dead. But the thing with that is, books can always be reprinted, you guys. And there's the whole situation. I don't know how all the details of it because obviously I'm a youngin'. But like VC Andrews, when she died, her family just kept writing and publishing books under her name.
Yeah, they found someone to continue the writing. They vetted, a bunch of writers, I guess, or whatever, and found someone that was close to her writing style and, did that. But I'm just like, if your writing is such trash that you have to fake your own death to sell a book,
just stop writing, homie. Find another life path.
Just for real, there are tons of things out here that there must be something else that you're good at.
I mean, did you consider getting an MFA? Did you consider taking a course to make better books?
Did you
talk to somebody?
An editor, a writing retreat.
A writing friend? You clearly had author friends. Maybe you needed a different group of friends. I don't know. There are so many other options before we jump to let's fake my own death.
I
don't know. People on the internet are wild.
Yeah. So what other Twitter drama you got for us?
It's not Twitter drama because it was on TikTok.
Okay, TikTok drama then.
Y'all have to understand that I don't follow these accounts because I do not interact with drama on the internet. Like, that's not me. That's not my brand. I'm not trying to engage with the white folks.
She doesn't interact with it, but she sure enough hell sits there with a bag of popcorn and watches that shit.
Like, I mean, I'm an observer. But
let's clarify there.
But let me be very clear about something. On my platform, I make it very clear. I am black. I am black first before I'm anything else. That's why I say I'm a black author. I'm not an author who is black. I'm a
black
author. They are in the correct order. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of like some of y'all be getting into discourse with people who have no intention of being educated. And I'm just kind of like, y'all, I mean, I'm not going to argue with the snowman whose brain is going to melt before I finish my argument. Like, That's not intelligent. That makes me look dumb. Like, no. No. Anyway, there's on TikTok, there's this woman who, she looks exactly like you imagine when I said this woman. She decided to get on the internet and cry about, in 2022, we need to leave DNFing books, showing the cover for books that you DNF in 2022. And it's just kind of like this idea that readers should not talk about books that are less than 3 stars ever. Should not show the cover, should not review the book, should not say it's bad because it's mean and it's bullying authors. And okay, look, this is a rant. Give me a second. Because truly, y'all, if you are so sensitive on these internets that any bad criticism makes you cry, bitch, get off the internet. Like, you clearly are not built for this. You need to go get a office job working for Tim as a secretary, getting his paper, staple them together and put it on his desk because you're not built for this. And it's just kind of like, I get so exhausted from these authors coming on here and they're like, y'all need to be nice. Y'all are bullying. I'm sorry. Here's the thing though. You would not say that about any other creative medium. When art is in a gallery, people will go in and be like, I don't get it. I don't like it. I'm not going to purchase it out of this museum. And you're like, you have every right to do that because you're spending your money. When people listen to albums, they'll be like, this album was trash. They could even like the artist and they'd be like, this album wasn't it. Their first album was better. Their third album was better. Literally, you have whole rappers making tracks about how others people's talent is critiquing their talent and how they don't like it because they don't understand the nuance. And you have people who don't understand the art critiquing the art. But that's the thing. It's art. People are going to do that. There are people who didn't like William Shakespeare. Okay. And he's out here taught, centuries later, like he was the peak of the peakness. Like, There are going to be opinions. There are going to be opinions. And I am so sorry if someone didn't like your vampire monster smut with 6 arms with no plot that was 800 pages long for no reason. Like, it's fine. Everyone is not here for it, okay? Everybody doesn't want 3 chapters of continuous banging, okay? That's fine.
Get a thick skin if you're going to be in this game. That's all I'm saying. Or, here's another idea.
Get out the game. Throw the towel in.
Or, don't read the reviews. And if you see that somebody has posted something about your book, don't look at it. How about that?
And I agree with that. And I also know that sometimes you're blindsided because I get tagged in reviews of my book all the time. But here's the thing. You ain't got to look at it. And even if you do, here's the thing. Okay. You know what? It is what it is. It is what it is. If I'm going to say this and if you take it the wrong way, then you need to seek therapy because I'm going to be honest with you right here. Okay?
Okay, wait a minute. There's what now? Okay, let's see.
The truth of the matter is, y'all, if you get offended by a review, that means that you are not proud of your book. That's what that means. Because the reality of it is, if you put a book out in the world and you know that it's the peak of your ability, it's the best of the best, you are proud to have your name on it, it doesn't matter if someone says that they don't like it. Because you're like, okay, that's you. That's a you opinion. There's nothing for you to critique about my book that I am not absolutely proud of or that I don't already know I could have done better.
Right.
But you're not going to sit here and tell me anything about We Are the Origin that I don't already know. Because if you sit here and tell me that it has bad world building, well, baby, that's a you opinion. That's not a fact. That's an opinion. Okay. Because I know my world building is on point. Okay. You're not going to sit here and tell me that the character development is bad because baby, that's a you opinion. Okay.
Right.
I know my character development, my characters grow and they have distinct personalities and they do not all sound the same. So if that's what your opinion is, that means that you should probably address your internalized racism about why you can't differentiate Black people when they're in books. That's a personal problem. You know?
Right.
But if you were getting offended because someone's like, I didn't like your book, well, they're allowed to have an opinion. And if they're critiquing your book and they're providing you a valid critique, because I'll be real, I know that in We Are the Origin, my pacing could have been a little bit better. I know that. You're not going to tell me that about my book and I don't already know it. But you know what I'm going to do in book 2? I'm going to make the pacing better. So it's just kind of like if you're going to be an author you need to know your book and be proud of it so that when somebody doesn't like it, it can roll off your back.
Right.
Like, okay, that's cool. It wasn't for you.
Right. Because every book isn't for everybody.
No. And the truth is, just like you said, every book is not for everybody. Like, there is a book for everyone, but every book is not going to be for everyone.
Exactly. So and you need to understand that right off the bat going into this, you know, because that's just the fact of it.
That's just the reality.
If I love contemporary fiction. Don't put literary fiction in my face, because I've read way too many literary fiction books that people are like, oh, it's won the Pulitzer. Oh, it's won the book award. And I read it and I'm like, what the hell is this trash? You know?
Yo, Audra.
I'm just saying, some of these books, I'm like, you guys just want to sit around and think high and mightily of yourselves.
Some people
and how intellectual you are, and you write these books that regular folk that aren't narcissists and don't have huge egos are just like, what are you doing?
Yeah, some people.
What is going on here?
Like the shared trauma, the shared experience of getting through a terrible book and being able to talk about it. And it's just like, that's cool if that's what you like to do. No one's judging you. And I think there's so much of people forcing their own opinions onto others without just being able to acknowledge that it's an opinion. Like, I have opinions all the time. And it's just kind of like, I'm not going to say that, oh, you shouldn't read this book that I hated because X, Y, and Z. No, I'm going to tell you why I didn't like the book. I'm going to tell you, if I didn't finish it, I'm going to tell you why I didn't finish it. But I'm not going to say that you're not going to enjoy it, you're not going to finish it, because my taste might not be your taste. And your taste might not be my taste, because I've had plenty of people be like, oh my God, Chelsea, you should read this book. And I read it and I was just like, why did you even put this on my radar? Why did you put this in my house? This is miserable. What?
Right,
where's the joy?
right.
And I think a lot of times, especially post 2020, with this push for Black authors and inclusivity and making sure there's representation of every checkbox imaginable in books, that people forget that, like, at the end of the day, this is supposed to be entertaining. Before we had TV, we had books. Okay?
Right.
Like, this is supposed to bring people emotions that they are looking for. Whether they are looking to be scared in a horror, whether they are trying to challenge their brain with a psychological thriller, whether they are trying to learn something with nonfiction, whether they want to feel something with romance, you are here to provide emotions. You're here to provide entertainment. And it's just kind of like, I feel like so many people get lost in that. Like, if it's not entertaining, why are you writing it? I don't care what the message is if I'm not entertained by it. And I always think about, like, the Proud Family, right? It's a really weird example, but the Proud Family was one of those cartoons where it occasionally hit on very real topics, especially during, like, you know, when Pandy was talking about Black History Month and she was learning about segregation in schools. Like, it hit on it, but at the same time, it did it in a way that was entertaining for the audience that it was meant for in the realm and the world that it was built upon. It was still Penny Proud being Penny Proud and the Proud family being the Proud family, but it was able to give a message that was important while still doing what it was supposed to do originally, which is entertaining. And it's just like, some of y'all, some of these authors don't know how to do two things at one time. They cannot deliver a message and be entertaining at the same time.
Right. They get on these platforms. Yep.
Yo, okay, my turn to bring up a topic.
Okay, but put a pin in this one. We're going to talk about not reading stuff just because it's trending. Okay, go. What's your topic?
Yo, my rant, my pet peeve right now, these authors who get on the freaking internet to cry about their book not being in Barnes and Noble. Bruh. If I see one more author be like, oh my God, I need you guys to pre-order my book from Barnes and Noble. Like, I get it. You want to be able to go in and sign your books and have blah, 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 boo hoo, cry me a river, get over it, build a bridge, be a carpenter, bruh, and move on. Like, this is not new.
Right.
And y'all act like, okay, this is a whole rant, because this really, really gets up under my skin and pisses me off, Audra, because I'm like, yo, y'all need better parents. Why did y'all mama not tell you to go if somebody don't want you there, to leave? Like, why have you not been taught that? How have you lived your whole life into your 20s and 30s and 40s and you out here crying on the internet because somebody don't want you somewhere? But if you don't pack your bags and go somewhere, like, I am so sick of it. I'm done. And you got thousands of bookstores out here who are more than willing to sell your book, and you want to cry about Barnes and Noble? Bruh, if you don't get your little coins together and run them out of business because they're not selling your books, you better go somewhere with that mess. Ain't nobody got time.
Right.
Ain't nobody got time. And if you tell me one more time to go to Barnes and Noble and spend my money with these racist people, I am going to scream. I want to scream because I'm not going to Barnes and Noble. Why are you telling black people after they have come out and said, we don't cater to black people? That's basically what they said. We don't want black people in our stores. We're not carrying your authors. We're not carrying your books. And we don't care if y'all are upset about it. And we don't build our stores where it's convenient for you to go anyway. So why are you telling black people to get in their car, spend their gas money to go to a store that don't want them to pay overpriced prices for books that they're not even going to read, to pre-order, and they can't even go in and pick it up off the shelf? I'm sorry, like, that's just stupid. If you don't be like, go come down here to Martha's and Jerry's because they got a stock of 30 books and I'm coming to sign them on the 2nd. And then once I leave Martha and Jerry's, I'm going down there to the bookish shop to do some signings. And if you don't get your bag and stop crying on this, I don't care. Like,
we don't
don't
need Barnes and Noble in every single state almost. There are black bookstores that you can go to put your books in. All you have to know is how to approach them professionally. And you could go and get your books there. You could do book signings there. You can go in and sign the books if they already have them in the store. You can support them online. You can get them online. So there's more than just Barnes and Noble and Amazon. As much as I like Amazon, it's convenient. You know, I have just been working on, unless it's like an older book that's out of print, and I'll get it like real cheap from thrift books or Amazon. But if it's new books, I support black owned bookstores.
And see, that's the thing that gets me, because in this particular case, I am not even talking about indie authors. I'm talking about traditionally published authors who are crying. Absolutely. It's just like, just ask your publisher to send it to a different store. Like, why are you crying about this? And it's just the idea that you don't have to have a personality. Your book doesn't have to be good. You just think it should be out in the world, and then all of a sudden you're going to be a household name. And because it's not in Barnes and Noble, you think it goes back to what I said earlier about that woman who was like, well, she got offended because she writes black books. The thing is, you're crying because Barnes and Noble is where the white people shop. And if your book isn't there, the white people aren't going to buy your book, which is going to, you think, hurt your sales. But it's just like, see, the reality of it is, if you had written a black book for black readers, then they would have gone and gotten your book from wherever it was available at, even if that meant ordering it from Amazon, even if that meant going down to Cheryl and Gary's to ask them to stock the book so that you can purchase it from them. But the thing is, you don't want to do any legwork. The thing is, you think that you're entitled to something that nobody ever said that they were going to give you. And you want to sit here and you want to be upset about it, and you think that you're above having to do your own legwork. And it's just like, you're not that cute, boo. I don't know who lied to you. You're not cute, and you're not a bag of chips. Okay, I'm gonna need you to grow some legs and put in some work. Okay,
and
sorry,
you are under no. I mean, it's the truth, and you are under the assumption that your book's not going to do well if you target it to black people. Do you know that the number one purchaser of books is black women? Do you not understand that?
Because black women are the most educated demographic in America.
So do you not understand that catering to them is going to do better than if you try to cater to these white audiences? Because they're not going to buy your book unless it's February. And even if they buy your book in February, they're not going to read it, or they're going to read it and say something like, I don't understand it.
I didn't get it.
I didn't get it. I couldn't relate to it.
And that
Come on now.
And that is why I have the stance that I have. And if you're listening to this and you've never interacted with me before and you've made it this far into the episode, something that I need you to understand about me and my brand is that it is very pro-black, meaning that I want the community that I build around myself to be around black people who love being black, who accept it, who embrace it, and who want stories that represent that in all walks of life. I'm not just talking about light skin with curly hair and is racially ambiguous on a cover. And I am not talking about Black people who are in white spaces and are made to feel uncomfortable and constantly deal with macro and microaggressions and gloss over them as if they're nothing. I want to build a community of readers where it's just like, no, we are here because we don't want that. We have enough of that. We are tired of that. We want stories that are for us, where we're not having to explain or talk about macroaggressions, microaggressions, colorism, hair, and how that makes us different. It's just like, no, it is what it is, and we're going to keep it moving. And that is just going to be an aspect of this character and not a defining trait of the entire book. And it's just the idea that there are still people out here chasing this white approval. That is what irritates me, because it's like, I grew up with parents who taught me very well. You do not spend time at a place where someone does not want you there. And America has made it very clear that white people, and if this is a case of, if you are white, if the shoe doesn't fit, don't wear it, boo. If this is not you, don't worry about it.
Don't
if
be
you've made
offended.
it to this podcast and you have listened to this far, I am 9 times out of 10 probably not even talking to you.
Right.
However, there are white people out there who have made it very clear that they do not want us in their spaces. They do not want our books, and they want to be in our spaces without restriction, but they don't want us in their spaces. And they have made that very clear.
Absolutely.
And it's just this idea of these authors still wanting to constantly cater to that, to constantly want to be over there. And it's just like, you are not going to be the magical exception, because even if you get in, we have seen countless time and time again, you are not climbing that social hierarchy. If you get in, that is the top, that's the highest you can go. And there is no reason to get there, because they are not going to appreciate you while you are there, unless you are putting your pain and your struggle on display for them, because they're not having you there
that's
to
what
understand.
They want to read. That's what they want to read. They don't. And there's a place for all those books that talk about Black trauma and Black struggle, but that is not all.
No.
That's not the only stories that we tell. We write historical fiction. We write young adult. We write speculative fiction. We write comic books. We write romance. We write fantasy. We write thrillers. We write horror. We write cozy mysteries. We're in all of these spaces, but they only want to make room for the stories that show our trauma and dysfunction. And newsflash, Black people are not the only ones with trauma and dysfunction.
No.
Okay. And they only want to show, contemporary fiction that they've approved, that, they have edited to appease to the white gaze.
There's a white love interest.
Yeah. And that's not the kind of stories that we want to write. We write in all of these genres, and we don't want to be boxed in. And please don't call a Black author the white anything, because then you're boxing them in to an expectation. It's very disrespectful, and you're not allowing that Black author to be who they are and to develop in the world's eyes as an individual. You're now calling them the Black this, the Black that. You're boxing them in. Please don't do that.
It's unnecessary.
Please don't do that. It's unnecessary. It's completely unnecessary.
And it's just kind of like, I don't like the idea of anyone, because one of the things that I'd never want to be, I love fantasy. I love what I do. And one of my goals is to be one of the greats one day. I want to be able to look back on what I have done with my life and my writing, and know that somewhere out there, I have helped influence somebody's life for the better. Because it's just like, I would have, the peak for me is when someone's like, I have always wanted to meet you because your book came to me at the right time. That is what I want write my books for. That is what I want to achieve. And it's just like, yes, there are authors who have achieved that. And yes, there are authors who are amazing in their genre. Like going back to N.K. Jemisin. She's amazing in this genre and has made a foothold and a name as one of the greats, right? But I would be so offended if anyone was ever to be like, oh, Chelsea is the next N.K. Jemisin. No, I'm not. I am myself, and I am making this path for myself, and I am not trying to mimic or be the next anyone, because that implies that that person is done and has passed their time of usefulness, and I don't subscribe to that kind of idea or whatever. But also, it's like, you're saying that I can't go past where this person was. Right. You're saying that my story, and then you're also equating my stories to their stories, and it's just kind of like, they could be completely different. You know, they have nothing in common other than the fact that, you know, both of us are Black women.
And if you do that and somebody doesn't like N.K. Jemisin, then they're like, well, I'm not going to read this person because you're saying they like N.K. Jemisin. So you're ruling out readers who might want to read that book because you're saying they're the Black this. Now, you can say what I have said. Tell N.K. Jemisin to move over and make room because Chelsea's book is here. Now, that's completely different because you're saying here's another person in this space writing in this genre who is, you know, on par, you know, writing, you know, as far as, you know, the quality of the writing to N.K. Jemisin. You could say that. But don't say this person is the Black this or the Black that. Or, you know, even if you're comparing to another Black author, don't say, you know, this author is like this because everybody is different. I would never compare N.K. Jemisin to like you or to Leslie Penelope. You all are three different authors who write in a space, but your stories have completely different feels and worlds and you know,
and
topics
vibes. They're
and vibes.
Completely different.
So I would never tell somebody, oh yeah, Leslie Penelope is the Black, you know, whatever, or Leslie Penelope is like N.K. Jemisin because they're in two different, completely different spaces.
Although I'm not gonna lie, Leslie Penelope, I've talked to her a couple of times. She read my book and she loved it. That's also on one of my goals. That's like on my checklist of things in my career. Yeah. I want El Penelope to like read one of my books and be like, this is good. Like that would be a win. That would be a win.
Send it to her.
I will talk to you about that off screen because there's some things that I can't say on camera. But I want to, but I don't know if We Are the Origins going to be that book or not.
Okay. Well, I don't know why, but you know.
I'll tell you later.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So going back to the topic that I wanted to talk about, this is something that my good friend Demetrius from Resist Booksellers, that you know.
Yeah, I know him. He's cool. He's cool.
Yes, he's cool people. And for those that don't know, resistbooksellers.com online. And if you are in Petersburg or Richmond, Virginia area, please go visit Resist Booksellers. Go to their website, resistbooksellers.com, for their address and their hours. But he brought up something on Instagram talking about read what you love. And he has talked about in other Instagram lives that, you know, don't feel pressured to read something because it's trending and because people are saying this is the book to read. Read what you love, because what's trending may not be the type of book that you normally read. And while there's nothing wrong with, you know, trying to step outside of your comfort zone and, you know, try out new books. But if you get that book and you're just like, I don't like this, you do not have to finish that book. You don't even have to pick the book up if you don't want to. So can we talk about that? Because as a reader, I have grown exponentially since 2020, because I was also that person before the pandemic that if something was on the New York Times bestseller list or something was a classic, I felt like I had to read it, you know, to validate my intelligence, to validate my, I don't know, you know,
to be like, I know what you're talking about, and I have read it, and I have an opinion about this thing that's popular, an informed opinion.
But in most cases, I thoroughly did not enjoy. I have very, very rarely enjoyed books that have been on the New York Times bestseller list or that have won Pulitzer Prizes or book awards. I have very rarely enjoyed them. I have very rarely found books that have all this hype, that live up to that hype, which is another reason why I started this podcast. But what are your thoughts about that, reading what you love?
So I have a very similar story to yours, where it's just like when I first started reading again, I'll say, because I was a reader as a kid, and then I stopped in college because I got sick of reading, because I had to read for school, and I was like, I'm not sitting in my room my entire college experience locked up with a book. Like, that's not what I'm doing. And then life, but when I got back into reading, I was just kind of like, I don't even know where to start now, because I am not, 16 going on 17, where these books are now meant for me. Now I'm a grown woman. I am like 22 going on 23, and I am not in high school, haven't been for a while, and at that point I was like, I'm married. Like, I am an adult with bills. Like, where are the books for me? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start with what I enjoyed reading when I stopped reading. So I went back to YA, and this was right around 2018, 2017, 2018. And it was just like, we were starting to get books with Black girls on the cover. And that was the first time I had ever seen that, experienced that. And I was just like, yo, let me get into it. So for a while, I was on that, like you, I was on that train. I was just like, if it's hyped, if I've heard about it on the internet, this is the book that the internet is talking about, I'm going to go get it. And I learned very quickly that a lot of times these books do not live up to the hype. And, I talk about all the time on like my personal platforms. Like I read Dread Nation. I loved Dread Nation. It's still one of my favorite books, like to this day. And I follow that up with I remember trying to read Cinderella is Dead, in the store. Right. I did not care for it. And I was like, I'm not going to pick this up. This writing style isn't for me. And so then that's when L.L. McKinney was like really popular, and her A Blade So Black had come out. And this was different because it was like a brown skinned girl with an afro. And I was just like, okay, it's not a racially ambiguous girl. Okay. I remember getting that book and the second one because it was already out. And I tried to read it. I tried to read it like 5 times. And the last time I was like, let me annotate, because I was like, maybe I'm just like zoning out because I'm not paying attention. So let me start highlighting. No, I got 55 pages into the book and I was just like, I don't like this. I am not going to like this. And I just got to the point where like, I'm not going to finish it. And it was just like, I learned in like that specific moment, I was like, I'm not going to read books that I don't like, because who am I trying to impress at this point? I'm a grown woman. Who am I trying to impress? Who am I trying to say, oh, I read this book. Who's going to care outside of me? And it's just like the time that I could sit here reading a book that I don't actually like, I could be sitting here reading a book that I actually do like and do enjoy and do want to actually sit down and read, instead of feeling like I'm back in college and this is an assignment that I just need to get through, you know? And I feel like there is so much hype on the internet where it's just like, you need to read this book. You need to read this book. And it kind of leads me to something else that I want to talk about. And I don't know how long this episode is going to be, but, I want to talk about the idea of Black authors being able to be mediocre. Because that's something else that kind of goes hand in hand with this topic. But, you know, as far as reading what you love, I am very much a proponent of, if you don't like an author, and I'll say this, like, I am all for a Black author getting their bag. So understand that about me first and foremost. However, I am also old enough and mature enough to say that there are some authors where I just don't like their writing style. And Kaylin Bayron is one of those authors. I'm so glad that she's getting her bag. I'm so glad that there are so many teenagers who are going to have, you know, those Black characters, and they're going to have the representation that they're looking for in her books, because she does write authentic Black and queer representation into her books. I love that for you. It is not for me. I don't like her writing style. It is not entertaining for me. L.L. McKinney is also one of those authors where it's just like, it doesn't really matter to me what she writes. I'm not going to pick it up because I've tried reading her books multiple times and I just didn't get into it. But on the opposite end of that spectrum, I love Elle Penelope. I love everything that she's ever written. So at this point, she's an Autobot. I don't care what she writes. She could write a book of poetry and I'm going to go pick it up because I'm like, okay, what's this about? I like the way that she tells stories. And I think when you get to a certain point, I think in the beginning of your reading journey, it's perfectly fine to pick up what people are hyping up because you probably don't know what you want to read. But
right. And you have to sift through things and figure out what it is that you do like. And the only way you're going to do that is by especially when you're just jumping into the reading world, is listening to what other people are talking about. But then it's okay to say, this is not my thing.
Exactly. It's okay to say this is not my thing. It's okay to say that I don't want this, and to start fine tuning your tastes according to what you actually like, and to just acknowledge the fact, because I think there's also this idea that if you don't like a book or if you don't like an author, that you don't like them as a person. And it's just like, I don't know Kaylin Bayron. I don't know L.L. McKinney. Like, I'm not against either one of them. And like I said, I'm all for a Black author getting their bag. Do what you got to do. Sell your books. I want you to be successful. You're just not going to sell it to me. And that is fine. And I think there is this, going back to the conversation we had before about authors being upset about people DNFing their book. It's like, you have to separate your art from your book, from your art from yourself. Okay. Someone saying that they don't like your book is not them saying that they don't like you. That is not, those two things are not interchangeable. And I think it's the same thing for like readers being able to be like, I don't want to read this author, and to focus on what they actually do want to read so that they do have positive experiences and can talk about them and can start going down the rabbit hole of things that they like. Because for me, and also accepting that, you know, things change over time, because like I said, when I started out, I loved YA fiction, YA romance.
I still love YA. So
I do too, but I'm also realizing that with these new authors who are coming out, there are a lot of them who are just not doing it for me. And I don't know if that's because I am further removed from high school than I was before, or because I am getting to other things. So like if you guys are watching this on the YouTube channel and you can see my bookshelf behind me, I'm getting into more adult stuff. Like I'm getting into thrillers, I'm getting into horror, I'm getting into higher level fantasy, like epic fantasy. And it's just kind of like, that is what I want to spend my time on. And I don't necessarily want to pick up a book, a fantasy book where the protagonist is like still in high school, or they're 16 and they don't know how to think through a single decision in their life. You know, impulsivity is cute to an extent, but ooh, that's going to get into a whole other rant about writing. And I'm going to pause that right there. I want to pause it right there. But the last thing that I kind of want to talk about, if we have time, I don't know how long this episode is going to be, is just the idea that so many authors, let me be real here, so many traditionally published authors, because let me be real with y'all, I don't know if traditional published authors are listening to this, but they be the drama on the internet. I swear they do. Indie authors just be out here trying to get their bag, writing books, selling books, moving on. And it could be these trad authors out here crying and whining and complaining and being like, you should allow us to be mediocre. Bitch, why? Why are you trying to be mediocre? Why is that the goal? Who told you that? Huh? Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. And I'm just kind of like, but the gag is, channeling my inner Kiki Palmer, the gag is, some of y'all are already mediocre and you think that you're great, and y'all have these superiority complexes being around the white people, and y'all think that y'all are the best of the best because y'all got through the gatekeeper, and it's like, no, baby, no, they let you in because you weren't intimidating. Those are different things.
Absolutely.
So, I'm at a point where for 2023, I am not on my head to read any traditionally published books. I ain't gonna lie. My entire lineup right now is indie authors, and I'm just kind of like, if it's trad, what does it say about me? Because I'm like, if you're a traditionally published author, that means some white person read your book and thought it was good, and I don't trust their judgment. I'm so sorry.
It's funny just because I have some traditionally published authors coming on who are some kind of big names. I'm not even going to say who they are, but you know, I need you to send me your list because I'm looking for more indie authors, but I'm having trouble finding more of them that are quality. So email me what you're reading so I could take a look at that as well.
Yeah. I shared some on the Melanin Library TikTok.
Okay.
But off of the top of my head, I want to read The Grim Reaper's Lawyer by Mia Monique, because it's supposed to be like a fantasy, like rom-com type thing where this woman dies and she's supposed to go to heaven, but she gets derailed and they're like, hey, if you don't represent me in court, you're finna stay here in hell. And she's like, hold up.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. And it's supposed to be like a rom-com type of funny thing. So I was like, that sounds interesting. I also want to read Tatiana Obey's duology. The first one is Bones to the Wind, and it's supposed to be like fantasy adventure. And I had like the pleasure of actually, like, I got to know her as the author before I even knew about her book, but her book like speaks to me because it's about it's Black girls, it's an adventure, it's a coming of age story, but it's a new adult. And you know, I love new adult because that's such an underrated category where her protagonists, I want to say they're like 19, 20, and they're like doing this coming of age journey or whatever, and they don't like each other. And you know, I like characters who don't like each other. Right. I want to pick up that one. There's also Cinder Glass, I want to say. I will send you I want to say her name's like Shalon Shalon Johnson,
Okay.
and that's like a dark fantasy romance, and I've never read like a dark romance, so I want to get into it, but it's like a black retelling of Cinderella, and there's like fae, and there's like a blacksmith, and there's like an immortal god who's trying to like make a deal, and there's like all this fun stuff going on, and then there's also Jackie I's How to Be a Better Adult, which is a like it's a fantasy, but it's like a magical realism about this girl who's working in corporate America. She doesn't like it, and then she gets like this handbook or whatever that I guess starts to change things and perceptions around her. And all of those are self-pubbed indie authors, and I'm just like, all of those sound.
So
way
you like
better.
you like to read a lot of fantasy.
I do like fantasy because I'm just kind of like, I like to see what we, you know, as people, Black people, can come up with when we are not locked into the social constraints of conforming to a society that's built around white superiority. You know?
So now for people out there that are listening, including myself, because, you know, I really have to dig and dig to find indie authors. How do you go about finding Black indie authors to read? Where do you go?
It's one of those things where it's just like, for me, a lot of them just come across my feed naturally because of the Melanin Library. And so a lot of them kind of reach out naturally because they want their books on the Melanin Library. And so I find them that way, but also go like not being afraid to go down the rabbit hole. And I know you don't like TikTok, and this isn't me evangelizing, but like right now, TikTok is just kind of the place where it's just like there are so many people sharing books, and they tag people a lot more on TikTok than they do on Instagram. And so it's a lot easier to just like click on their profile and then like see like, oh, you're writing this book is coming out soon, and to add them to the list. And for me, it's just like, I'm sure this happens to you too because of the podcast. Like, people will reach out and be like, hey, I listened to the podcast, and they'll talk about a book that they've seen or that they've mentioned, or they'll ask me, have you read this book? And my answer is going to be no. I'm gonna tell you this right now. I don't read as voraciously as I used to. And I read really slow, but there's that. And then also just like really attempting to like follow authors, indie authors on social media, because the thing is they will shout each other out. And I know this because like as an author, I know that on my platform, I am going to shout out all of my author friends when they have books coming out and when they're doing something. I'm like, hey, check out Audra. Bloodland is getting re-released. Hey, check out Amanda in the House of Transcendence came out and it got a glowing review. Hey, check out Portia. Her Love Lost series is getting, you know, it's getting hyped. Hey, check out Tatiana. You know, her Bones of the Wind duology is winning awards. Hey, check out Kimberly Lemming. You know, she's getting a movie adaptation. Like, I'm going to shout people out. And then when you follow people like that, well, guess what? I just gave you 6 people to follow, and those 6 people are going to shout out their friends. And then you get to go down this rabbit hole.
Do you use hashtag? Do you search by hashtags on TikTok? And if so, which ones do you? Do you just search Black indie author or
Black Book Talk? Just search Black Book Talk, because one of the reasons I do like TikTok is because the Black reviewers almost are always talking about indie authors. They do not discriminate on TikTok, whereas on Instagram it's very much aesthetic. It's very much finished product, and a lot of indie authors do ebooks, and they do digital, like it's not physical, or if it is, it's not necessarily something that you're like, oh, this cover looks absolutely gorgeous. Sometimes it is, but not all the time. So I like that on TikTok. They push more so the substance of a book rather than the aesthetic of a book.
Right.
So I follow the hashtags Black Book Talk. Of course, follow hashtag Melanin Library. And I'm not just saying that because I run it. I'm saying that because other people
Because
will
it's
tag
an
me.
Excellent resource. Yeah.
It's a resource, and other people will use the hashtag Melanin Library in order to share books. So like follow that one. Also follow the hashtag Black Authors, because you'll find not only the authors themselves and their platforms, but you'll also share people sharing those books. There's also hashtag Black indie authors. There's also, you can do it by genre. Just put Black in front of it. Instead of looking for fantasy authors, look for Black fantasy authors. Looking for horror authors, look for Black horror authors.
Right. So same thing I do on Instagram.
Yeah, it's the same. TikTok searching, if you're not used to it, takes a little bit of getting used to. But once you get the hang of it, you fall down the rabbit hole. And the thing I like about TikTok is you only have to search it once or twice, and then they're going to start showing you on your For You page people who are using that hashtag.
Right.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're coming up on the hour. So you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share? Maybe in regards to Black History Month and how we should be really, because for me, honestly, I'm going to tell y'all right now, February is not my Black History Month. June is.
It's not. Yeah.
June is my Black History Month. So what advice do you have for people out there, Black or white? Because there are Black people out there too that only read Black authors during a certain time of year. So leave us with the final thought on, why you should be looking for Black authors all year long and not just during February.
Okay. So a couple of things. One, I don't care who you are, what you look like. You could be purple with polka dots. If you only read Black authors during Black History Month, you're being performative and nobody cares. And nobody cares if you're ignorant. Nobody cares if you don't read diversely. So you're doing it for yourself at this point. And if you are, I don't say shallow minded, but like if you were only deep enough that if I stepped in you, my feet wouldn't get wet, then you probably should not be following people during Black History Month because you're hurting more than you're helping and no one's impressed. And that is me just being real with you. Because what happens is, and if you're listening to this, that might sound harsh, but the reason I say it that way is because as a Black creator with a platform, when you get an influx of people, it tells the algorithm that, hey, people are interested in your content. But then when February falls off and, we start coming up on the 22nd, the 23rd, and people are no longer interested in being performative, well, now you have 200 more followers who are no longer engaging with your content. So the algorithm thinks that your account is dead or you're no longer putting out the same content, which means you're not reaching the people who actually want to reach you. And if you're just going to be performative, what that looks like is, the thing is, the Melanin Library is Black 365 days a year, 24/7. It's all about Black authors. And we put out recommendations all the time in our newsletter, on our profiles, our whole website. There's nothing but recommendations for you to find what you're looking for. So it comes across as very performative if the first time you interact with me, you're like, hey, I like to read romance. Do you have any recommendations for that? Bitch, you have not been to my page, have you? Because I've already made several videos about this. And it's just one of those things where it's just like, I'm going to be very frank with you if you're listening to this. February is not the month to start reading Black authors. It could, because if you're not going to read them in January, if you're not going to read them in March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, then there's no point in you putting on this face that you care. And do not look for the books where it's pushing struggle, because that's not all that we experience. And it's not even the majority of our experience. It's just the majority of our experience that other people see of us. And it gets exhausting having to explain to someone why you are not angry, why you are happy, why you are loved, why you want an adventure, and having to explain representation to other people. It becomes to a point where it's just like, I should not have to explain to you why I want to read books about Black girls who are loved. And if that's not something that you can understand, then you are not ready to be following people and expanding your bookshelf. And if you're only going to diversify your bookshelf for your aesthetic during February, or if you're going to buy these books and not read them, you're doing no one no favors, and the only person you're impressing is yourself. And you know the truth. So hopefully, if that's your performance, hopefully you're not even giving yourself a standing ovation for that.
Right. But exactly that.
That's my thoughts on it.
Yes, absolutely. You should be reading Black authors 365 days a year. And yes, there are other authors of color, but I am Black first, so I am going to promote Black authors. I'm not saying that you shouldn't read other authors of color, but also if you don't know anything about me, don't come to me asking me why I don't read white authors, because the answer is they were jammed down my throat all through primary education and part of, college education. My community college was a PWI. Then I went to my HBCU, and then I went to a PWI for grad school. So all through those years, and even some at my HBCU, I had to read white authors. Okay. So I've read white authors all my life. I've had my fill. I don't want to read them anymore. I read black authors.
And that's the thing that I think people have to understand when people of color, because it's not just black authors, because everyone who does not identify as white has had this experience in the bookish world. We can say that we only read books by authors who look like us because we have done the reading by white authors already. You can't say that you only read white authors because you have not done the reading for authors who do not look like you yet. You have not seen outside of your experience. You have been reading books that are only mirrors for your entire life. You have never had to look through a window at somebody else's life to try to understand what they are going through. And that is what makes you a shallow person. That is what makes you lacking as a human being. That is what makes you lack sympathy when you see people, and why so many I'll say so many white women, because there are tons of examples. That's why you see so many Karens on the internet being loud about encouraging racism and division and discrimination, because they can't be bothered to see other people as people on equal terms with them. And that's because they don't read.
Because they don't read, and because it wasn't taught to them in their schools. And that's a whole nother subject. You were taught in the public school system, and even the private school systems teach that white is centered and white is everything, and that everything revolves around white. And when all you have in school is white, it's getting better now, I will admit. They are doing some, it's, depending on the type of school you go to. If you're in a mostly white school, you're probably not reading too many black authors, but they are starting to get a little bit better now. But that's probably going to reverse now that everybody's all up in arms about, critical race theory. But 9 times out of 10, if you went to public school, and especially if you went to public school in the era that I did, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, you did not get any black authors. At least I didn't. Now, it depends on geography, because I know some black people my age who they were exposed to these books when they were in elementary school and junior high and high school, but they were in areas where the schools were predominantly black because of the geography. But for the most part, you're not learning about black authors. So when white authors say, well, or white people have said to me, well, you're closing yourself off by not reading black authors or not reading white authors. And, you're doing the very thing that you accuse us of not doing. Like, no, I'm not. I've read white authors all my life.
We've already done the reading.
I've already done the reading. Have you, though? Because your curriculum in school did not push black authors on you the way white authors were pushed on me. So you have not done the reading. I know. I feel very confident if you stand 10 white people up in front of me. I feel very confident in saying that 9.5 out of 10 of them have not read any books by black authors other than maybe Toni Morrison or Maya Angelou.
Or James Baldwin.
Or James Baldwin. But you have not read anything outside of that.
And here's the other thing that I think the nuance of the conversation is always missed. Black authors, when we write books, we don't exclude white people from the story. We don't even always make them the villain, unless that is just generally who the character is. Our books are diverse, not because there are only black people in it, but because we do not center ourselves so much that we exclude other people. The problem is with a lot of white books, they will place it in a place where it's just like, there are no black people, there are no Hispanic people, there are no Asian people, there are no biracial people, there is no one who does not look like them. And that is not realistic. And the problem that so many people have with these books, and why they say white authors don't count as reading diversely, is because they do not include diversity in their books. And when you bring that to their attention, they get defensive instead of proactive and being like, oh, you're right, I will do better in my next book. And when you encourage them to write diversity, they get defensive and they're like, well, you're telling me not to write black people. No, I'm telling you not to write the main character as a Black person with their internal thoughts moving through a Black space, or at worst, moving through a white space and pretending like you understand what that is like, because you don't. And then marketing it to Black people, saying that this is that experience in order to make a quick buck. That's what we're saying. But you don't understand that. We're saying write your Susans and your Karens and your Ashleys with an H. Okay? That's fine. No one's telling you not to do that. But don't pretend like there are no Black people in this story and they've never interacted with someone who doesn't look like them ever. And then that's the norm. Because then what you're doing is centering whiteness and pushing this narrative that white is the default. And it's not.
And also, please, do not sit there and say, if you are a white reader, do not say that you could not relate to a Black book. Okay, you may not be able to relate in the sense of you don't completely understand the culture, but you can understand the story. If you can understand Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and, you know, all of these high fantasy, you know, white books, then you can understand Black stories. You may not get all of the inside jokes, but you understand the story as a whole. So please, if you're saying that, understand what that sounds like and what that is to us.
No, not even what it is to us, what it is, period. If you say that, you're racist.
You're racist. You are racist, and what you are saying is that you're unwilling to
You can't be bothered.
Hear our stories.
You can't be
because
bothered to be uncomfortable.
You don't have any problem understanding our trauma. You don't have any problem understanding our pain, and it's not your pain. You can't understand it in the way that we understand it because you haven't experienced it, but you don't have any problems relating to that. So if you can relate to that, you can relate to all the other stories that we write.
Yep. Period. And if you can imagine someone getting on a spaceship to go to another planet and marrying a werewolf and having a vampire on the side, then it is surely possible for you to imagine a Black person who I know for a fact that you've actually met at some point in your actual lifetime being loved by another Black person. That is not hard to imagine.
Functionally and beautifully and without all of the drama. So, yeah. All right. Well, we're coming up on 1:15. So we're going to end this episode here today. This has been the first edition of Rants and Rambles, which I hope to continue all year long. This will be the last episode of each month with me and Chelsea. Unscripted. We talk about whatever comes up. Thank you for being here with us today. Thank you, Chelsea, for coming in and sharing your knowledge and your perspective with me here today.
Thank you for inviting me. I've been looking so forward to this, and I'm excited for what's come to come. I'm so excited. So.
Absolutely. And don't forget, Chelsea, why don't you tell them real quick where they can check you out on all your socials?
All right. So if you guys are new to me, again, my name is Chelsea. I go by CM Lockhart on the internet. I am the author of We Are the Origin, which is a fantasy about a group of assassins who have to work together to save the gods in the realm from destruction. It is a series. Book 1 is already out, and book 2 is coming out on August 29th. That is the plan.
And that's my birthday.
Hey. And I also run Written in Melanin, which is a publishing company for publishing Black authors. And underneath that imprint, I also run the Melanin Library, which is an online database of books written by Black authors. So if you're ever looking for something to read, you can always go to melaninlibrary.com and find it. It's all Black authors, and you can just search by genre for exactly what you're looking for. There's indie, trad, and self-published authors. So you can get the full gambit of it, and it's absolutely free. So feel free to check that out. And you can follow me on my socials at C Lockhart Write, and that's C as in Chelsea, Lockhart Write, WRITE, on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and pretty much everywhere there's a social. But I'm only going to respond to you if you message me on TikTok because I don't do Instagram. So there's
She really doesn't, y'all.
And if you want to follow the Melanin Library, that's melanin_library. And I also have a podcast where I talk about bookish and writerish things. So if you're looking for writing advice, check that out, the Written in Melanin podcast. And last but not least, I am also a writing and publishing coach. So if you are an author and you're looking to publish your book and you would just like to know the ropes, like someone to help you through it who has been through it multiple times now, then get at me. I can help you, and I will walk you through every stage from figuring out how to publish your book to figuring out your target demographic to figuring out how to market and get beta readers and everything in between. So yeah, just head to my website, cmlockhart.com.
There you go, y'all. And I will put all these links in the show notes below. So be sure to check those out in case you didn't have a pen and couldn't write all that down fast enough. It's all in the show notes, so don't worry. And you know me, I'm Audra Russell. This is Between the Reads podcast, betweenthereads.com. And also my newest podcast, Staying on Code. The website for that is stayingoncode.black. If you want to contribute to my Patreon, that is patreon.com/betweenthereads. Would love that because it takes money to run these shows. So, and Chelsea also has a Patreon, which I will also put a link to as well. So, yes. This has been Rants and Rambles Between the Reads. The end of January is here. We're looking forward to seeing you all in February, which is not Black History Month.
It's not.
It's not. So,
I mean, honestly, you should be celebrating Black History all year long, but we'll talk about that next time.
All year long. So do not come at me talking about what are you doing for Black History Month, because the answer is I'm doing the same thing I do the other 11 months out of the year. So,
hey.
Until next time, y'all, you know what to do. Grab a book and read. And I'm out. Thank you for lending me your ear today. If you've enjoyed this independent podcast, you can help me continue to shine the light on Black authors and their stories by becoming a patron at patreon.com/betweenthereads, or by giving a one-time gift at www.ko-fi.com/betweenthereadspodcast. That's ko-fi.com/betweenthereadspodcast. Tune in next time for another great episode.